Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be talking about my December reading wrap up. Happy 2024 if you're watching this at any point. I'm not posting this in 2023. Happy 2024, happy New Year's. I hope you guys all had a great New Year's Eve. If you're anything like me, you probably spent the night laying in bed reading or asleep by the time the ball dropped. We made it. Let's go. I feel like every other year I have a really great year. Not that 2023 was a bad year by any means, but it definitely was more of a year of growth and focusing on my goals. And I think 2024 is going to be a super slay year. We're going to be talking about all of the books that I read in December. We're going to start with the books that I do not have physical copies of. Oh my god, guys. Before we get into my reading wrap up, I hit my Goodreads goal. As I'm filming this, which I am pre-filming this, it's December 23rd and I've read 100 books this year. That is so exciting. That is counting like audiobooks that I listened to. It does count some of my DNFs throughout the year. If you want to know any of like my 2024 reading goals, watch my end of year book tag, which was the last video that I posted, and you'll be able to see them in that. Starting off with an audiobook that I listened to. This was part of my reading holiday romances reading vlog. One Day in December by Josie Silver. The concept of this book is it is this girl who in the beginning of this story, she sees this guy while she's on a bus, and she kind of has one of those like love at first sight moments, which I don't believe in love at first sight, to each their own. She basically spends the next year of her life looking for him in everything. It becomes this thing with her best friend that I think they call him like busboy or something along the lines, that they're both trying to find him for her because they both believe this is her one true love. And then in the story, she ends up going to this Christmas party. This isn't spoiling. This is literally like what they tell you when you're looking into reading the book. She goes to this Christmas party and the boy ends up being her best friend's boyfriend at the time. Follow their lives for 10 years. Every couple of months, there's a significant thing that happens in their life. It wasn't necessarily a bad book if you look at it as a like literary fiction type of a book, but if you're looking at it in the lens of a romance book, I will never support a cheating trope. I think that is so disgusting. I didn't love this book, but I understand why certain people might like the book. I gave it a 2 out of 5 star. It just was what it was. It was fine. And then in December, I was going back through some of the books that I kind of soft DNF'd throughout the year to either try and finish them or just hard DNF them and leave them in 2023. One book that I tried picking back up was The Inmate by Frida McFadden. DNF'd this book pretty quickly. The characters in this book just... The main character is so fucking stupid in the book and she was getting on my nerves, so I just couldn't read about it. The synopsis of this book is you're following this prison guard who gets set in this prison that she knows one of the inmates in the prison and she's actually the reason he's there. First off, in the real world, that's not fucking happening. There's no way that that type of a mistake would happen. There were a lot of things that were happening and characters were making choices and saying things, and the main character just like, there were very obvious things that she was ignoring or she just wasn't understanding, and it was getting on my nerves so much. So I DNF'd this one, I think like maybe 30% into the book. I didn't like it. And then also another book from my reading holiday romances video, which just was not a success, was Meet Me Under the Mistletoe by Jenny Bayless. That book was a holiday romance. It is about this friend group and I don't know, it just was kind of like elitist and things like that, and I just wasn't liking it. And honestly, I can't really tell you much more of what that book was about because I DNF'd that book pretty quickly into it. So these are all of the other books that I read. The first book that I read in December is Check and Mate by Ali Hazelwood. I also believe is in a reading vlog that I did in Bookmas. This is Ali Hazelwood's YA debut. It is about these two people who are big in the chess world. Main character, she used to be super involved in chess, but there was something that happened with her family. It's kind of this big thing that's lingering throughout the story is why does she hate chess and what happened to her family? Why did chess destroy her family? And our main guy of the story, Nolan, is basically, I believe he's like the world champ of chess or something along the lines. He's basically like the best player in the world, and she ends up beating him in a chess game. It was just a cute little romance. I will say I don't really think this is like a YA romance. I have been hearing that from quite a few YouTubers. It basically is just like a closed door romance, which is what I said the first time I read it. is that's basically all it felt like. I don't think this was a YA book, and I don't think it should really be labeled as a YA book. I did like the book. It was just one of those cute little romances that you kind of forget what it's about when you close the book. I gave that book a 4.5 star. Also, I did forget one book that I do not have a physical copy of, and it was a book that I listened to on Spotify. The Killing Game by Kate Bold. It is a Alexa Chase novel. I think it's basically going to be, or maybe it is, a series about this US Marshal and like investigations that she goes on. This was about like a serial killer ex-psychopath, just crazy cult leader type of person. In the beginning of the book, she's transporting him and he basically escapes. You follow in the book, they're trying to find him and bring him back and get him back in jail. The reason I chose that as like my audiobook, I think thrillers are probably the easiest books for me to listen to on audiobook because I don't feel like I'm missing any information. I definitely feel like I can zone out and not super pay attention to what's going on, and I can catch back into what's going on very quickly. I don't know if I would have read that book if it was not like a free audiobook that I could have chose. I think I gave it like a 2 out of 5. It was all right. Some of the things that they say are super questionable in the book. I don't know. It felt like one of those books that like your grandmother or your grandpa would read. It was kind of one of those books. I'm sorry if the lighting changes a lot in this video. It's like overcast outside, but like the sun comes out. I don't know. You'll deal with it. It's fine. The next book that I read in December was Powerless by Lauren Roberts. This is a fantasy romance about Hayden and Kai. In this world, there are ordinaries and then basically people with powers. The king in this world is trying to basically wipe out all of the ordinaries. They have these trials to prove that they are the most significant person with powers. Hayden is our main character and she is an ordinary, basically trying to pretend like she has powers. Kai is actually the future king's brother. You follow them in this book and they both end up being in the trials. It was a very good fantasy book. I gave this a 4.75 out of 5. Didn't quite give me that 5-star feeling, but it was a very good book and I could see why people do rate it that 5-star. The next book that I read in December is a book that I did finish. I wanted to DNF it. This is Wreck the Halls by Tessa Bailey. I feel like a lot of people actually read this month. This is just probably the most cringiest two people need to fuck sort of romance story. It is about Beat and Melody. They are the children of these two basically members of this biggest like rock band of their time. In the story, they're basically trying to get their moms to do a reunion show, but it's this weird like setup for how they're trying to get them to do the reunion that just doesn't really make a lot of sense. The romance I didn't feel anything with it. And then also I was watching Carrie Can Read's video where she read this and she talked about how once they sleep with each other, it's almost like the characters do like a 180 and they're just completely new characters, which I do definitely agree with. I gave this a 1. Like, it wasn't good. I wouldn't recommend this to anyone. The next book I'm very excited to talk about because I need to pick y'all's brains. If you've read this book, please chat with me in the comments about this. I read Bright Young Women by Jessica Knoll. I went into this thinking that this was a thriller, which I believe it's still technically labeled a thriller, and it is about these sorority girl murders that happened in the 70s. The whole point of this story is to basically try and flip how most stories are about the murderer. It is supposed to be about the people that survive, and I totally understand that. I understand the significance of that. This is more like a true crime book than it is a thriller. It just, I don't think was well written. I didn't enjoy it as much as I thought I would or as much as I hoped I would. It is very obvious that the author, and I don't know if this is necessarily true, but this is just like my opinions, seemingly the murderer was heavy inspiration of Ted Bundy. They talk about like the Volkswagen and the driving from different states and escaping prison and stuff like that. And even if you don't know like anything about Ted Bundy, if you've seen like the Zac Efron Bundy, whatever that thing was called, you know, like those little details are specific with him as a serial killer. I went into it thinking it was going to be a thriller, so I thought it was going to be very interesting. I thought we were going to get, you know, more of a recap of what happened that night. This book is more so just the trials that kind of happen after it. When I was reading it, also a problem that I had, I didn't notice until like I was a good 50% through the book that we're switching POVs between two different people, and also it's going back and forth in timelines. I don't like that. I hate switching POVs, and I also hate switching timelines back and forth. It confuses the shit out of me. I like to just keep reading and go to the next page and just keep reading. And then the next books I'm so excited to talk about. I finally read the Carball series. I'm gonna be honest, I kind of like this series better than Once Upon a Broken Heart, which I think is crazy because everyone who has read Once Upon a Broken Heart and the Carball series prefers Once Upon a Broken Heart to this series. Now here's the reason that I think I like this series more. This feels more like a fantasy series. Once Upon a Broken Heart feels like a magical romance series. This series is about this, basically imagine like a mix of like a carnival and a circus that occurs once a year. It is this game that you're trying to solve the game. There's a lot of magic and you don't know what's going on, what's real, what's not real. Our main characters, Scarlett and then Tella, they're two sisters who ever since they were a kid, their grandmother had told them about this game. They finally get invited to the games, but once they are there, they realize that one of the sisters is actually the whole purpose of the first game. I absolutely adored the first book. I ate it up. I thought the idea of Carball was so fun, and I love Stephanie Garber's writing. I love her world building, and I genuinely felt like I was in this sort of magical world while I was reading this book. This one, I believe I gave a 4.75. I might have given this a 5-star. I gave this a 5-star. I loved this book so much. And then following it up is Legendary. Obviously, I'm not going to tell you what this book is about. I did give this one a 4.75 just because this one switches POVs, and I like the POV that we get in the first book a lot more than this book. And then the last book is Finale, which is just, I think, a really good closeout of the series. I really liked this book. I also gave this one a 5-star as well. So yeah, I'm very sad. I don't know if Stephanie Garber has any other books that I need to read of her backlist. I finally got those books done, and I really want to go back into the Once Upon a Broken Heart series and reread it, just because I enjoyed actually reading Once Upon a Broken Heart first and then reading Carball, because I felt like when certain things were happening, I was like, oh my god, this makes so much sense from that series. I don't know, I was just putting pieces together, and it was a really great reading experience, so I really liked that. And the last book that we are going to be talking about in today's video is a book that I actually did not read. I found an audiobook of it on YouTube, which is something I'd recommend if you guys like audiobooks and you know you want to read some really popular OG TikTok books. I listened to The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo fully on a YouTube audiobook. It was free to listen to. Definitely check that out. I listened to this. I thought this was really great. I did also give this a 5-star. Looking back on it, probably more so like a 4.75. This is about Evelyn Hugo, and she is this just like, imagine like a Marilyn Monroe movie star. She decides that she is going to do a tell-all of her life and sell it to this reporter. The reporter that she decides to do the tell-all with and basically sell her life story as a book to is kind of like, why the fuck are you doing this? Because I don't know who you are. I was at work when I was listening to some of this book, and when pieces started coming together, I literally, like, my jaw was on the ground. This was such a great book. It's so great. I can't even put words to how I felt about this. Genuinely, this is probably one of the best OG TikTok books that I've ever read. I highly recommend this one if you've not already read it. So I am editing this video right now, and I've actually finished some more books since filming this video. We're going to quick talk about them. So the first one that I finished was Fourth Wing. This is not Fourth Wing. This is literally Iron Flame. I said that with my whole gut into that, and I said the wrong book. That's fine. Here's my thing. And I know that there is so much drama around this book, around this series, everything like that. I really enjoyed the book. I know that some people do not like the writing of the book. They say that the writing is very showy instead of, or no, the writing is very telly instead of showy, but I don't mind that. I didn't find the writing annoying when I was reading it. My problem with this book, this series, whatever, is kind of more of like from a publishing standpoint, and this is like a whole long topic that we can get into in other videos, whatever, of how book talk and the trend of reading, which is such a stupid thing, but like whatever, has kind of made the publishing world turn to fast fashion when it comes to some prints of books. The release of this book, if you know the drama behind it, is very interesting. I ended up, in my book,
it's tabbed in one spot because I'm missing 30 pages of text. And when I was reading this book, I was so upset because the 30 pages of text is such a key turning point that thank God my brother-in-law found the chapters so that I could read them. It was just, I don't know. So I think on Goodreads, I rated this a 3-star. For the story, honestly a 5-star. I really liked the story. I didn't think it was too long. I think a lot of people are complaining about how long this was, and like the text in this book is so tiny. If you enjoy the story, having a long book with small text is not a problem. I'm excited to see where this goes, but I don't know. I don't know how to feel. I have mixed feelings about that. I was listening on Spotify to The Manor House by Gilly Macmillan. It is this book about this couple who wins the lottery and then the husband ends up dying, and it's this weird, like, the wife doesn't know who to trust. I think I listened to like 4 hours of it, and I actually ended up DNFing it because I didn't realize that it was switching timelines as well as switching POVs. And I don't know what happened when I was listening to this on Spotify, but for some reason it started playing the chapters out of order, so I was so confused that I just DNF'd it because it was not worth it. But unfortunately, because I did listen to part of that book, I ran out of listening hours for the book that I'm listening to right now. I have 1 hour left of it, so we're just going to talk about this book in this video. That is The Rom-Com by Devin Daniels. This book is literally like How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, but in book format. Oh my god, this book is so good. Love it. 5-star. I will say there's one sort of comment that's kind of weird in the book where it's talking about like virginity and like wishing that you saved yourself for this person and like feeling bad about yourself for like not being a virgin. That kind of was like, ooh, that's not it, girl. But that book's a 5-star. I'll probably actually finish it next month when my Spotify listening hours renew, or you will see me in Barnes in a couple of days just reading the last couple of chapters because I really want to finish the book. The last book that I finished in December and my last book of 2023 that I finished was For the Throne by Hannah Witten. This is the second book of the duology. I believe it's called the Wilderwood duology. First book was For the Wolf. This one was For the Throne, and I did not like this book. I had this problem with the first book where I was into the book, and then when I was out of the book, I was really out of the book. I rented it from the library, so I read it on my Kindle. I liked some of it, but it was quite a while since I read the first book, so I didn't remember a whole lot of the plot. I didn't love it, and I could have went without reading it. I rated it a 2 out of 5. Back to the video.
But yeah, that was all of the books that I've read in December. I will see you in my next video. I do have to give a quick little warning. If I don't post a lot of videos in January, it's not my fault. I got summoned for jury duty, y'all. I will see you guys all in my next video. I love you. Thank you for watching. Bye.